Here, so we'll take effect in me.
We're live.
2 seconds.
And I like the braces. Off the braces off. She's happy. I'm nice.
All right, it is 5:30, so welcome to the August 4th, 2021 Southeast Polk School Board meeting.
August 5th.
This was printed on the 4th, but it is the 5th, you're right. Thank you. I still want it to be the 4th. Anyway, Karen, can we get roll call?
Handy,
Here.
Crab,
Here.
Fisher, Nave, Slings,
Here.
Crowell,
Here.
Powell,
Here. All right, 1B, agenda adoption. Dr. Lutnick, I understand there one change.
There is one change. We need to move item 2D, the photography agreement, to 3E. So we're just sliding it from an action item down into a topic for discussion.
Move to approve the amended agenda.
Thank you.
Second.
Thank you. Karen?
Crab,
Yes.
Slings,
Yes.
Crowell,
Yes.
Powell,
Yes.
Handy,
Yes. 1C, district vision and mission. Mr. Krill?
Southeast Polk will learn, lead, live, success for college, career, and civic life, engaging all students in learning a challenging curriculum delivered through quality instruction.
Very good. Thank you. 1D, this is time for public comments. If there's anybody that would like to address the board at this time, you may do so. You'll have 3 minutes. If you have a group, it's 5 minutes, or I guess depends on how many groups we got. We have a big group out there. Anybody that wants to speak?
I think you're
Looks
first.
like we have one. Bridget, go ahead. And
Okay. Hi, everybody. My name is Bridget Ernst. It is a pleasure to come here and see all your faces tonight. I just wanted to come and introduce myself if I haven't done so already, personally, as a candidate for school board for this coming election on November 2nd. As many of you may probably already know, I have a strong passion for education in our community, and this seems like the next step that I'm called to take. So hopefully I'll have the pleasure of serving with many of you.
Thank you.
thank you. Good luck.
Thanks.
Seeing no one else, is there anybody on the line? Is Mr. Pecan with us tonight? Yes.
I'm on the line. I have not received any comments through email.
Can hear.
You're the quiet talker, Kevin.
He said he's not.
There have been none.
Nothing? Okay. All right, thank you very much. Hearing no others. 1E, consent agenda.
Motion to approve the consent agenda.
Seconded.
Any questions for staff? Comments? Hearing none. Karen?
Slings,
Yes.
Crowell,
Yes.
Powell,
Yes.
Handy,
Yes.
Crab,
Yes.
All right, moving on. Item 2, old and new business. Item A, first read of various policies.
Motion to approve the first read of the various policies.
Second.
Thank you. Karen?
Crowell,
Yes.
Powell,
Yes.
Handy,
Yes.
Crab,
Yes.
Slings,
Yes.
2B, this is the Kids Club agreement for the 2021-22 school year.
Motion to approve the Kids Club agreement for 2021-22.
Second that.
Thank you, Karen.
Powell,
Yes.
Handy,
Yes.
Crab,
Yes.
Slings,
Yes.
Crowell,
Yes.
2C, this is the school resource officer law enforcement agreement between Southeast Polk and Pleasant Hill.
Move to approve.
Thank you.
Second.
Karen?
Handy,
Yes.
Crab,
Yes.
Slings,
Yes.
Crowell,
Yes.
Powell,
Yes.
All right, moving on to item 3, topics for discussion. Looks like enrollment updates. Mr. Horton.
Figure I'd come up to the microphone rather than do it from my seat because it's the way Kevin does it. Since he's not here, I want to represent for him. As we do, obviously just about 2 times a month. I gave you this particular handout so you can kind of monitor if this is sort of what you're into. What enrollment across the district looks like, again, those 2 times a month, once early, once late. And if you like to follow the trends, which I would say I don't like to follow them, but it's certainly my role to follow them. Some interesting trends this year, obviously we've been aware for some time that we thought kindergarten would be, I wouldn't necessarily say full, but I'd say healthy for sure. That's as much blue as I've seen in a long time in kindergarten, which you look back at some of the classes now, and it's been a couple of years since we've seen a group of 500. Nice to see him again. Obviously Runnels is feeling a little tipped over at 26, 25. That one's maybe moving past the healthy point. I did move one student just today. Family asked if their student could transfer to a different school, not because of the numbers or anything. It was really more of a matter of convenience for the family. And I thought, it's not really one of our criteria, but it sure helps us if we can move a kid or 2 or 3 or 10 to another school. And so actually they're not at 51, they're at 50 as of this afternoon. So they're looking at 225s, and it's kind of like, how do you whittle those groups down one student at a time, and enabling families to have situations where they're a little more comfortable, taking a kid to one school as opposed to another. So, obviously it's something we're going to continue to watch. And if we get even more students entering the district between now and probably Labor Day, we may be hiring another teacher somewhere. I think it would be appropriate. So we'll see how that goes. Obviously, we're monitoring, continuing along those lines. And 4th grade at 4 Mile actually was remedied today, which is nice. We're going to have a 4th section at 4 Mile due to an involuntary transfer of a teacher from Willowbrook to 4 Mile. Not all that's been formalized yet, and obviously it comes to all of you for a vote. What would it be, August 19? And then it will be finalized. But I've spoken to all 4 teachers at Willowbrook, and one of them's going to make that move for a year and probably end up coming back to Willowbrook, because you look at their sections and you go, hey, there's a bunch of kids coming. So we'd do a year, 4 Mile, come back, and then we do the same thing again the following year in 5th grade. And one of those folks would move over to 4 Mile for a year. And then everything fundamentally, if the numbers stay the same, which they never do, we'd be right back to where we started. So all's well, that we're really hopeful all is well that's going to end well. I know the teacher's excited about the opportunity to teach in another school with another principal and with another 4th grade team, and can't appreciate that kind of approach enough. That's for sure. She's great. And obviously you can look at the secondary numbers. It's kind of, nothing there has been really overly shocking or alerting to any of us. Average class sizes look great. Again, kindergarten's probably 1 too many. If we could continue to work on maybe getting that closer to 20 than 21. I know you're going, well, the average is only 1, but again, I think if we can capitalize on each opportunity to lower class sizes, hopefully that would be a goal we could get done. Fingers crossed, but time will tell. Overall class size, 21 kids, which is fantastic. I would say I'd put that number against anyone in the metro. I think they'd be jealous, which is good. They should be, of a lot of stuff. And then lastly, we're up about 78 kids, at least at this point, which is great. Anything, we've always kind of set our watches to somewhere between 50 and 100 as being good growth. It's good, it's manageable. It's not off the wall crazy. But a really good trend. I hope we can sort of reassert that trend for the next decade and beyond. I just think it puts us in a really good spot to do what we need to do and to keep Kevin from pulling all his hair out and lack of money and things like that. If we're diligent about how we do things, that kind of growth is fantastic. So I guess that's really all I had prepared to kind of talk about. Any questions, any concerns, that kind of thing?
I'm a little surprised at the kindergarten numbers. I thought they'd be higher.
I agreed. Me too.
I'm surprised that most people must be holding their shit back again.
Are we
No
hearing a lot
idea.
of homeschool?
Not any really any more
Nothing
than normal at
rumble?
this point.
Okay.
No, it's not unheard of though for kindergartners to come out of the woodwork late.
Right,
So we'll see in a couple of weeks where we're at.
okay.
You know me, anytime that number gets above 20, I get a little itchy because that's a lot of 5-year-olds
Yeah.
to have in a singular room at any point in time with one adult. So
Agreed.
I'm just
With the
glad you
run,
can
with the
have that
runnels.
discussion, because we've had years where
that's true.
it was not that close.
Yes. And I would say this too. When was the last time we ever had a packed runnels?
Right.
Maybe, maybe, I don't know. I look down the numbers now. Maybe it was 5 or 6 years ago with that
Yeah.
current fifth grade at 27 and 26,
Yep.
but that's a long time span and good. So it's kind of one of those, sure, is it a concern, whatever, but at the same time, is it a good concern? Does it speak well for the town of Runnels and the community and its growth? Maybe, I don't know about enough about municipalities and things like that and that kind of thing. And if Runnels is indeed growing, but it's nice to see this year's group rather than 217s, which is what we were looking at a year ago.
Mr. Horton, thank you so much
Yeah,
for
thank you.
addressing the 4th grade situation at 4 Mile.
Sure.
I'm assuming we're going to approve that in a couple weeks, but do they have an extra classroom for that?
I'm not sure. They're going to somehow. I don't know what it
They're gonna
looks
make it
like or
work,
which
yeah.
one it is, but I know Dr. Levnick has done a lot of work in looking at capacity of buildings and things
Right.
like that and how particular rooms are being utilized. And, some of them have one person in an entire classroom and we can have some folks bunk up with each other if need be, or just move some things around to create those kinds of spaces that actually already exist. It's really more recreating where individual people are officing and things like that.
Yeah.
A year ago, sorry to butt in that first hallway, the music hallway, as you come in from the playground, there were 2 of those rooms that they were using to store desks and things like that as we
Right.
spread out.
So there is-
So I'm sure
yeah.
one of those can become that classroom.
The other question I have for you and Dr. Lupnick and maybe Joellen is, do you guys have the sense that our 4 new principals are settling in well? I don't see anywhere else on the agenda. I know it's not an enrollment thing, but since we're talking about 4 Mile, that's one of the 4. and then other
Sure,
3?
sure. In a nutshell, I'm excited about
Good.
the 4 new folks and do I think they're acclimating? Yeah, I do. I haven't seen anything that's made me raise an eyebrow and go, oh gosh, this could be fun
Yeah.
moving forward. So I just, they're also skilled and they're also different from one another. That's the really fun part is
Yeah.
we didn't really take sort of a homogenized look at 4 people and how do we find 4, I don't know, Randy Moaning clones, out there. How do we do that? I'm not sure that would be good for anybody. But we just found 4 really skilled people who I would say I've kind of been like impressed with each one for different reasons. I mean, again, not that their job is, hey, let's see if we can impress Joe, because I'm impressed by a lot of stuff.
Well, I know it's not on the agenda. I was just curious. Thank you.
But would you
Yeah,
all,
Yeah.
Joellen or
Couldn't
Dr.
be
Lutnick
happier,
add to
very
that?
pleased. Had a chance to meet with them on their turf and yeah, everybody's off and running.
Yep.
Cool.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hey, thank you. Appreciate it.
I would add one thing before we move on, looking at the high school, because those are the largest numbers we've ever had in that building, and we've known that. It just underlines the importance of the bond issue a year ago at this time and the plan that we have in place to address it. Because if you look at eighth grade, you can see that what's coming and what's leaving at the seniors. And so that's going to continue to fill up, and
Yeah.
the plan that we have in place is going to become more and more important. So it's one of those things, kind of a glad that was able, then the community was behind that.
Mhm.
3B, assessment updates.
Evening board. As we begin a new school year and start to look at some data results to think about how they can inform our work moving forward. We have received the preliminary results from the Iowa's State Assessment of Student Progress, sorry, ISASP. And so as we look at our summative data report from last year, we know that there's going to be some things in there. We know that there's some things that kids typically learn in a school year that they may not have learned last year. And the data results that we have there also encompass the school closure from the year before. So the first time we gave ISASP ever was in 2019. So that was our first year of administration. And then we did not administer that assessment in 2020. And we did administer it again in 2021. So the results that we're getting, they did do a configuration to look at growth profiles and the things that we're looking at. What we're looking at in preliminary is just straight percentage to percentage. We haven't looked at the how many kids move from one proficiency level to the other. As more data comes in from the state, we'll be able to take a look at that. But I did want to take a look at some of the numbers. And again, I want to use this data, but I want to use it in a broad picture because of all the other factors that go into last year. Data is going to be very important for us as we move into the upcoming school year. And it's that ongoing classroom data that happens each and every day. We will not have time to teach skills that kids already know. So we're going to have to know what they know and what they learned. And we won't have the luxury to assume that things they typically learn in a school year that they will know coming into next school year. So we're going to have to be very strategic and focused with our data. But this data is at a broader level and can give us more system information and help us think where we might put our energies and our focus and where we might target some areas. So if you take a look at the preliminary results, you can see the document that I shared with you, and you can see the proficiency scores. And I'm hoping I shared it correctly. I just learned by printing. I thought when I turned it into a PDF, you'd get all the tabs. So I'm hoping that that loaded into the data report. If not, I may have to send that to you. But as we looked at our data across each of the grade levels, we noticed in most grade levels, we had a 2 to 5% proficiency drop. We actually had a couple of grade levels where we increased by about a percentage. So that was about our range in regards to what it looked like from 2019 to 2021. There were a few areas where there was a more significant drop than the 2 to 5%. And those will become our target areas that we will work on, focus our curriculum, teaching and learning resources, and provide more support moving forward. And those target areas are 3rd grade literacy, 7th grade literacy, 9th grade math, 10th grade math, 10th grade science. So those will be the areas that emerged for us as areas that will need some extra support and some extra scaffolding so that we can make sure that we recover any learning there that will help students move forward and be successful in those areas. While looking at ISAS, we also wanted to look at early literacy and early math data. And we typically give that data in the fall, winter, and spring. But so I gave you the results there of 2021 of what that looked like in fall, winter, and spring. And we're starting to recover some of that a little bit. We still have a ways to go, but it was a little rough in the fall, got a little bit better in the winter, and we started to see some progress in the spring. For the comparison data, remember, we did not test in the spring of 2020. So for comparison data, I put winter of 2020 to winter of 2021. Not the best comparison, but I didn't think the spring of 2019, going back and comparing 2 years ago, would be as useful information for us moving forward. So again, we did see some drops in proficiency, but we also saw some trends where that was starting to be recovered as we moved through the year last year and as we got into springtime. So as at this time, the subgroup data is not all available in the testing portal, and we will continue to look at that data to see if there are additional groups of learners that may need some additional support. You know, as we look at data, we know some of our students who are more at risk may have had higher risks of learning throughout the pandemic as well. So we want to pay attention to that data very closely and provide additional support as we move through. But that is a look at our first look at summative data from these past 18 months and some of the things that will point some arrows in a direction that we need to go.
Was any of this a surprise? Considering factors, I didn't think so. Talk to me about the colors. Because my understanding is green is good proficiency, puts us above the average, so on and so forth.
Yeah.
Yellow is somewhere in the average area, orange is slightly below, and red is, we got problems.
Yeah, so our goal is a healthy core would 80% or more of our students proficient would indicate that we have healthy core instruction. And then, because you don't want to intervene if you don't have healthy core instruction, you can't intervene your way to proficiency. So green is an indication of a healthy core. And then yellow is close to proficient, and that's going to be in the 70% range. Orange is a little bit further away from proficiency, and that's going to be in the 60% range proficient. And then red is going to be where half or less than half of our students met that proficiency, because that's not an intervention. That is getting into the system and reworking the core, maybe even redesigning some of the scope and sequence to make sure that we get some prerequisite skills for students so they can find success. I think the one that didn't surprise me but probably is getting a lot of my attention is the third grade literacy, just because we know that is such an indicator of how students do in the future. So underneath some of that data, we saw some promising movement in K and 1 that I think will support us, but that is one I want to make sure that we get into and address very carefully and very tightly. While we did see a loss there, our loss was not as significant as it was at the state level. It just got some of the state averages, and we are above the state average in terms of what overall proficiency looks like. Having said that, that doesn't mean we should sit back. We need to get after that one and get after it in a hurry, and we have some things in place to address that.
That was going to be my next question to you. We always aim to be better than the state average. Because,
absolutely.
frankly, we just are. But
in this year, it gives us kind of a context because there's so much unknown, but you're right. That's not our end goal, right?
Have you had a chance to compare any of these? I know they're fairly fresh, but compare it with any of our peers or anything like that. I know you talked about the state average, but do we have more of a focused perspective?
Yeah, at this time, all I have is state average. I don't have the average of the maybe UEN schools or metro schools, but I think that They're just publishing the reports right now and then to go into the parent portal. I'm hoping by September, November, we start to get some comparison data for like schools. So it's coming out a little bit later this year.
When do you think we'll hear from you on that, what you find? After the first of the year?
We've got
or-
her scheduled for our next meeting for sure.
Oh,
and-
to hear, you to hear.
Yes,
Okay, I
hear
thought you
from
thought,
you.
when would I hear?
Yeah.
Okay,
No,
sorry.
I meant if you're getting more data, October, November, when will we hear that report from you compiling all of it?
And as we get more data, I'm on the agenda to share that. And then we are working with principals tomorrow, as a matter of fact, to use this data to help set, so our district areas, I shared with you what those are going to be. And then they will begin to write their school improvement plans based on their own building data and what that looks like. So we'll also have school improvement plans come forward, which will give you even a broader picture or more specific picture of that data and how we'll use it to move forward.
So they have what they need right now to work on their building plans? or
They
not?
will tomorrow.
Okay.
It just got published
Okay.
and not all the groups are there yet, but
Okay.
they'll have a pretty good start to get them going. I think we have enough indicators to start to prioritize our areas.
I think you answered my question, but I just want to make sure I'm right. So, because obviously the numbers are lower from last year, your goal for this year is that when you said that 80%,
Mhm.
is that 80% of 80%? What was?
Yep. We want a minimum of our 80% of our students to be proficient in each subgroup. So 80% of all of our students to get that target to reflect a healthy core. Before the new assessment and COVID hit, we had to hit that goal
I know.
overall. And now, we have to rebuild to that.
Mhm.
And we are going to rebuild to that while addressing some of the learning groups that would require our attention.
And to me, the numbers don't look, I thought they'd be a little worse
Yeah.
than what they are.
Yeah.
And I look at them, like, no, they're not.
Yeah.
I mean, it reflects the year we had,
Yeah.
but I don't think it's anything bad. And I think 80% isn't out of the question of being able to get there.
No.
So I mean,
And every time I share it, people are like, yep, we'll get back there. So, there's a very positive feeling that it's.
Because we were there.
Yeah, we
Yeah.
were there and we know we can get there and it's not good, but it's not devastating either, and we can do this. And as soon as we look at it and I say, this is our first step, and everyone's like, yep, let's go. So we're ready to get there.
yeah, and I see where Adam's asking about our peers, but at this point, it really doesn't, probably doesn't even make a difference to look at because nobody's gonna be there. I mean,
No.
if they are, I guess I am kind of curious. if
I would
there's
like to
somebody
learn.
that-
Yeah.
that are-
Yeah, and when the state report cards come out, then we'll start to get a better comparison idea. But again, we're all in that boat together, we collaborate with our peers. So if we do see some areas where, hey, you're really meeting goals here, again, we'll collaborate. What are some of the things you have in place? How can we learn from each other? So it's more about collaborating and learning rather than comparison.
Yeah, I was looking at when fifth grade science, I mean, obviously. When they were in the red, 19 and now they're 69%.
Right.
They actually made an improvement.
Yes, yeah. So it wasn't
just
the
don't know.
greatest score, but it's the
don't know.
trend line is going in the right direction. Yep,
So,
that's right.
Yeah, I was curious about that one. Do you have, did we just happen to have some really smart third graders that were in fifth grade last year? Or is this like,
Yes.
were there interventions, specific interventions
Yeah.
on science that?
Science is a little trickier because the Iowa assessment is not yet aligned with the grade level science standards. So when you take that assessment at fifth grade, it's going to
Oh.
include some standards from different grade levels. So we're still getting a better handle on what standards are there and how we can make sure they're reflected in our curriculum.
But it seems like we're doing maybe a better job of that.
Yep. And the item analysis is helping us do that and some of the targets they have there. And by increasing our literacy and problem solving, that also helps with our science.
Not to drag this out too much further, but I think the fact that our results show, even with the downside or even with the down nature of them from what our normal is, the fact that they're still above state averages across the board and still promising, as you say, is a huge feather in the cap to our staff and to our teachers for being so resilient
Yeah.
and great in what this last year was. So we definitely need to acknowledge that.
Exactly. If this is looking at, a year and a half of comparison or 2 years of comparison, the students didn't have as much instruction as they typically do because of the closure and the every other day and things like that. So for teachers to work within that environment and keep things manageable so that we can move from here and continue to move forward, definitely all their hard work is showing and will continue to show for our students.
I think an important piece is we have the structures in place and we know we have a fantastic staff and the pride that goes along with that. Now we just need the time to put it in action here. So. And Adam, to answer your question in a non-answery kind of way, unscientific qualitative data in discussions with peer superintendents, exactly the same. So I'm sure everybody's relative of where your starting point is, but it's the exact same conversation, even down to the grade levels.
And we won't get into this discussion tonight, but I think all of us at some point in time are going to look back and kind of compare and go, well, what did we do that other districts didn't do? Did our model work better? And hopefully
it did.
Well, and I believe it did. And that's kind of why I'm asking the questions that I am.
There's going to be a flurry of doctoral theses.
There you go.
master's theses.
Well, and I hope this is real wood, because I'm not gonna, that we never have to put this thought process into place ever again. Not in any of our lifetimes, but I'll certainly be curious to see if the decisions we made had more positive results in the long term than our peers.
So you're planning on running?
For what?
Well, and this will come at another date, so not to prolong it anymore. But as we do look at extended learning and summer school, we're going to be very thoughtful and looking at the students who just are tomorrow completing a month of summer school, and then matching that against their fall, winter, and spring data compared to students who weren't able to participate in that opportunity, and see what kind of extended learning is necessary to move that data forward. Because our at-risk students are going to need everything in our learning recovery plan and more to get to that point. And so we are going to have some good data points to see what structures do we have in place that are going to move the needle in the right direction. So here we go.
Well, don't apologize for belaboring it, because I think this right here is what it's all about. Yeah, we've got all this other stuff to deal with, buildings and buses and trees and you name it, but this is the core mission right here.
Yep, that's right.
Any other questions?
More to come. So thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah, Gary, it is good to talk about education pieces. instead of
Yeah,
Financial pieces
right.
or
What's that? I was hoping to have a third B there, buildings and buses.
Oh, yeah, I
and
don't know where it came from.
Ash bores.
Yeah.
Dashboards?
Ash bores.
Oh,
Ash boards.
You mentioned the
Oh,
trees.
That's where it came in, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was stuck in there.
All right, 3C, district safety.
A little bit of a memory test. If you recall, we put an emergency plan together with some really great training a number of years ago after the state fundamentally said, you have to. The good part was we already had one, but we didn't have it structured the way that the legislature and our trainers wanted us to have it structured. So we were able to restructure that a number of years ago, and we've implemented, I think we implemented right away, and then we did one review, and then COVID hit. So we're really kind of at that point again where it's very appropriate to say, let's pull out the emergency plan, go through any changes, whether, it's certainly not a good thing that COVID happened, but it really didn't necessitate lots of changes yet. And largely because we're still living our way through this, still kind of putting one foot in front of the other during a pandemic. And we really have not had the opportunity that I'm really looking forward to, and that's to whitewash our plan or hot wash, sorry, wrong wash. To hot wash our plan and say, okay, what did we really like about the annex that talks about infectious diseases? How did our plan do? What did we like? What did we not like? What worked? What didn't work? What did we never imagine, which is a lot, that occurred? And we really have not had the chance to do that process yet. So currently, there really aren't any changes to the emergency plan. Sort of the rest of the plan functioned as fundamentally as we wanted it to. But once that hot wash happens, and probably for next year, I'm hoping, provided we're still not living this, the pandemic piece, we'll be able to come back with something that is that really is a product of having lived through an infectious disease issue that really has gone worldwide and has extended over time. So I think my biggest thing tonight is just to alert everybody, hey, the plan's coming back at the meeting on the 19th, and it'll be do we still want to, go with the plan that we have, with the idea knowing full well that the annex for infectious diseases will undergo a pretty good makeover, I would think. But all other pieces haven't changed a whole lot, and certainly has been a while since our group got together and looked at that again, and that'll make its way to this year's Safety and Security Committee. They'll look it up, they'll look it all over. We'll have conversations about what do we like, what do we not like, and then we would bring that next year for review by all of you. But currently no changes, and we have the obligatory take it to your board at our next meeting. And any questions about that particular plan? Go for it.
I don't have a problem with it coming back at the next meeting, but when your committee gets together, I think it would be helpful, because I think there's all different kinds of people in all the different buildings that would have very interesting different viewpoints and perspectives of what everybody went through when they go over what we just start going through now, that you notified everyone in the district to contact the person in their building that's going to be on the committee to make sure they shared some perspective of their viewpoint.
Great, that's a
Because
great
I
idea. I
think
like that.
there's- Yeah, I think everybody had different experiences and
Mhm.
things that I never could have foreseen being an issue when
Yes.
our plans started in the first place.
Mhm. I think, one interesting thing in listening to Dr. Latham talk about the academic part of this living through a pandemic, working through a pandemic, succeeding in a pandemic, that I thought was really interesting, is that a number of the things that we have done are going to stay because we were forced to do them. But what we really figured out in some cases was, hey, that would be effective anytime.
Yeah.
Or that would be a really good idea any day at any point. And some of these things will hopefully, if we're smart about this, we'll keep those things
Right.
that are just good, and change the things that aren't. And I see this process really functioning that way, but I really like the idea of, what about people who aren't in our group or
Right.
aren't on the committee? It's a big committee, but it certainly doesn't pick up, it wouldn't pick up what a kindergarten teacher who's not on the committee might have to say or want to say from Altoona Elementary or from Ronalds or from wherever.
Yeah.
So I think that could be really helpful.
Yeah, I think there's probably a lot of voices, but just to share
Yes.
with them that you guys are going to be getting together and put a paragraph together and say, hey, I had this experience and please be aware of it. And or someone contact me that wants to learn more about, I just think everybody had various different unfathomable experiences.
Yes, yes. A lot of things we didn't see, a lot of curveballs coming we didn't see coming.
Nonstop. Thank you, Joe.
You bet, you bet. Any other questions? Thank you.
Thank you. 3D, return to learn 2021-22.
You bet. I've placed at in your spots a couple different documents. There was one guidance for back to school from the Iowa Department of Public Health /DE, and then also kind of our update to our RTL plan. This is something that is required by state law and also by federal requirements in order to accept that, the federal ESSER money. So it's something that we will need to act on. But in talking, Brett and I thought we might want to wait until the 19th, just because things were kind of fluid. At that time, the IDPH had not put out what they put out this afternoon, and there were a lot of rumors that it was coming. So we didn't want to get ahead of the game here. Most of this is kind of non-news, because it's how we finish the year, and it's kind of how we've been expected to move through things. But I'll just kind of run through overall. I don't want to spend forever, but I want to give everybody a chance to discuss, mainly because we'd like to be able to communicate a lot of these things out to the public, even if it's just in a draft form, to say, this is what we're looking at. Because you know what happens in the absence of information, people make up their own stories, and then that can just be confusing and not necessarily positive. So
Just to be as succinct about this as I can, my understanding is there is absolutely nothing we can require. We can advise and recommend that masks are worn, but that's the extent of what we can really do.
regarding masks,
Yeah.
that in May of 2021, that
Yep.
House File 847, it prohibits us from requiring masks.
And there's no, and my understanding is there's no availability for the online schooling at this point in time, similar to what we had last year.
We'll get to that.
Okay.
Yep. So quick overview. Our plans are to operate under normal in-person traditional processes and procedures with extra precautions taken with health and safety in mind, and we'll follow all state and federal laws. We're excited to return to this more normal environment, but we also understand that we're still operating in a pandemic, as we've kind of talked through tonight in several different ways. Adam just mentioned masks. To be in compliance with state law, we will not require masks on district property. We do feel they're an important tool in mitigating the spread of the virus, and they'll be available at all buildings. Probably the most important piece of all this is stay home if you're not feeling well. I mean, that's the one kind of general piece of guidance out there. As far as reporting goes, our nurses will work and follow the guidance of the Iowa Department of Public Health and the Polk County Health Department in notifying and responding to positive cases and close contacts. We will collect data on the positive cases and report those via a website dashboard. And if there would be a positive COVID-19 case reported in a classroom, we'll communicate this to all families in the classroom. Hand washing stays an important thing, along with hand sanitizer being available in all facilities. As we've talked about earlier, regular meals will be provided at no charge again this year for students. And kids will eat in cafeterias with as much distancing as possible. Additional areas may be available at each individual school, and some schools do have grab and go scenarios set up, like for breakfast. And so that may happen as well.
Did that extend? Because I thought it wasn't until December.
It's through the full year.
So it is the full.
Yep.
Wonderful.
We'll have regular custodial cleaning practices, focused on cleaning for health, and also still with a heavy focus on filtration and circulation of outdoor air through the HVAC systems. Adam, to get to the question that you had in teaching and learning, we do feel strongly that the optimal setting for learning is in classrooms, where kids have the opportunities to engage and interact with teachers and other students. But we know that there are medically fragile or medical conditions that might prevent students from being in the classrooms, and we will have some options. Those include homeschooling in various forms and online learning through Edgenuity. We'll work with families on an individual basis to create a plan that best fits their scenario. And if families find themselves in this situation, they need to contact their building principal or the district curriculum office, and we'll work from there. But to dig just a little bit deeper on that one, in the Edgenuity format, you're doing that and working through that as a family with your student. There is not a teacher there. It's not a Zoom scenario where there's a class
And it's not
online. like-
affiliated with us. It's a separate entity.
It is, but it's aligned at the secondary levels for sure. It's aligned to our curriculum and our standards.
Okay.
We've never had it for elementary levels before, and so that'll be kind of a little bit of a work in progress as far as the alignment goes. But I believe they are aligned to the Iowa standards. Yeah, I know that's.
I guess what I'm trying to pick at a little bit more is that unlike last year, you're not dealing with the Southeast Polk School District. You're not dealing with the Southeast Polk teacher. You're dealing with this third party entity.
Correct.
Okay.
Yep.
That's what I'm, yeah.
How do we contract with them, or what's the relationship?
I'm gonna kick that to Dr. Latham.
Yeah, we currently contract with Edgenuity at the secondary level, and as Dr. Lutnick said, we have spent 3 or 4 years aligning our units of study with Edgenuity. And we have currently used that as credit recovery. So if students weren't able to successfully pass a class, it could be unit recovery, it could be lesson recovery, and we were able to match the things in Edgenuity that they missed during that time. So we do currently use that as credit recovery, and we do currently contract with Edgenuity for a number of seats. We have not done that, and we've done that through 8th grade. So we have a few seats at 8th grade as well. We have not contracted with Edgenuity for elementary level. And so it would depend on what kind of need. I've already worked out a couple of things with some medically fragile students that don't include Edgenuity, but we have a plan in place to help address that.
Mhm.
But we do it by, we do a site license at the secondary level. We would do it by number of seats at the elementary. So we would see what kind of need there was, and we would contract and purchase at that level.
Can you
I
say
don't
that,
believe it would be a long-term investment.
say that last part again? I didn't understand it. There's a site, there's something at one level and that's something at a different
Yeah, at
level.
secondary level, we buy like for all of the high school.
Yes,
But you can also purchase it by seat. And if you
by
haven't
students that are
purchased it-
using it.
Yeah. if you haven't
Okay.
Purchased it to a certain level, it's cheaper to do it by seat.
I understand.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I hadn't heard of this until I saw it in the paper. I still read the paper, Des Moines
Me too.
Register. There's 2 of us still get it.
I read it on my
Um,
phone, but yeah.
That aren't they using this Ingenuity or in whatever it is?
Edgenuity.
Ingenuity? Des Moines,
Yes, they are.
and we've apparently been using it. I didn't even know
At
that
the secondary level.
Okay.
That's not-
for credit recovery.
For probably 6 or 7 years. They
Okay.
replaced Apex. We used to use, yeah, I think you're right, Joe. We used to use Apex and then we replaced it with Edgenuity a while ago.
Where are they based out of?
I don't know
I'm
that.
sorry. I mean,
Our salesperson is based out of Waterloo, but I. don't know
okay,
if it's
there's somebody in Iowa. All right.
Yeah,
So if it was an elementary student that was in a situation where we're using that and we're not fully aligned, would that mean that they potentially would, I guess,
They're based out of Arizona.
how would that work out in terms of, let's say semester, first semester, everything is, up in the air, and then we feel good about coming back for, for next year, 2022, January. I mean, are they going to be so like out of alignment that it's going to be hard for them to jump back in, whether it's later this year or the following year, or how does that work?
so it is aligned to the standards, but it might not be in the sequence that we teach them. So far, we've been able to work out a homeschool plan with Southeast Polk curriculum that would allow them to transition back in more seamlessly.
Okay.
We've also created end of unit tests for each of our areas. So like 3rd grade has an overall end of 3rd grade test. And we would be able to use that diagnostically to see here are the standards they had in Ingenuity, here are the ones they didn't, and we would have to do some reteaching and recovery of the standards because they have them, but it might not be in the same sequence that our units will study.
Okay.
Our first attempt to work with families will be with our Southeast Polk curriculum. And if that, we can't find a solution there, then we would move to Edgenuity.
Okay. So the message I hear is that we have options. and that the families just need to contact their building principal and work through it that way. Okay.
Just moving through the rest of this quickly. As far as transportation goes, masks will be made available on all buses. At this point, we will be allowing visitors and volunteers at our buildings. That's something we'll keep a close eye on, looking at what the community situation is like, particularly at the elementary level where the students that wouldn't have been vaccinated or had the chance yet. Extracurricular activities will still function under normal procedures, and our building facilities are open for use and rental by outside groups. Again, that's something we'll keep a close eye on. So this is, like I said, all in draft form for a few different reasons. Our nurses are meeting with Polk County Health tomorrow. Again, they've met twice in the last 2 weeks here, and they'll meet again on Friday morning, I believe it is. And then we meet as a district administrative team, or at least some of us, with Polk County Health on Monday afternoon as well, to talk about basically some of these new things that were just released, and go from there. So there may be some slight changes. I don't think there's going to be any substantial or significant change to anything that we have here at this point. But like I said, I think we need to communicate this pretty soon to get it out there so people can have an idea of what things are going to look like. We will, on the 19th, bring a version of this, whatever that turns out to be in 2 weeks, for board approval officially, again, because we have to do that. It's a state requirement. Questions?
I'm
Things are
thinking
bouncing in
about
mind.
and maybe this happens with the meeting with the nurses tomorrow. Are you getting, I haven't paid very much attention to this thankfully lately, but quarantine is, somebody gets, is that, because I mean, these kids have not been vaccinated,
Sure.
most, if not nearly all the elementary kids. And
Yeah, that
so
all
how does that
changed.
piece
There
work?
was Iowa Department of Public Health put out guidance back in May.
Okay,
That kind of changed things on quarantine. And basically, if you're a positive, then you'd be isolated for 10 days. That doesn't change. From a quarantine standpoint, they're only looking at exposure within the same household. That's how the guidance reads right now. But that's part of what the nurses are meeting and talking
Okay.
about, because that was all pre-Delta variant.
oh,
Thing. And
there we
so
go.
not quite sure where that lands.
Okay.
Again, that's part of why all this is a draft, and it's written as we will follow the guidance of Iowa Department of Public Health in Polk County, because we have to. I mean, they're the experts and we have to follow what they say.
Well, I'll throw this out here since we're just talking and discussing, but and that's why I asked emailed that question to you, because I'd kind of forgot. Do you still have your superpowers or those? And as I understood it, they've apparently have expired. Yeah. And so, but if we have some situation that happens at an elementary, I mean, I appreciate a special board meeting or whatever, but if you need to, that's why we kind of gave you those powers. I thought that was the benefit of them. If we had some situation pop up, I know you'd probably bring it to us, but something immediate happened, you could do it.
Sure. That is one of my number one questions for our meeting on Monday is what kind of things are we looking at? It sounds like that right now things are reverting back to the 10% at a building attendance center.
Oh,
If 10% or greater of the student population is out for
right.
that, like whether it was the flu or
Yeah.
COVID or the mumps or whatever, then that's when Polk County / IDPH steps in working with our nurses, and they kind of start to help us through.
Make a
whatever
call.
happens next. Yeah.
Okay.
But that literally is the number one question I wrote down today
Okay.
when I was preparing for that.
I would suspect I'll have a little more answers on as far as how this is affecting the school age children as far as the numbers.
Yeah, I think everybody's kind of learning as it goes. Yeah.
Have we had any real issues with summer school. I'd seen in the
Wayne
newspaper.
Public
The
Schools.
Wayne Public Schools had some of that.
No, we had a couple brushes, but nothing to that level.
So we'll know more maybe at the next meeting.
You know,
Okay.
obviously keep you informed between meetings here.
I will wait to ask my questions.
Stay tuned for the 19th.
Yep.
All right, any other questions before we move on? All right, hearing none, save the best for last. Mr. Campbell, photography discussion.
Sure, so we put out an RFP for photography services. We ended up with no proposals
Oh, no.
submitted. We did have some interest, some people that dipped their toe in the pool. So what I did was reach back out to Sherry Lynn to gauge her interest, because I knew she was interested still at a certain level, I think, but wanting to scale back. Kyle Starsevich, who has done some things for some of our groups recently here in the past, is really getting into that line of work. And he had contacted Mr. Bacom in early July. Oh, no, that's not right. Maybe I have the date somewhere, a week ago, maybe, about his interest in it. He had some concern about his commitments with doing photography with weddings and being able to attend all of the functions. I think so. I reached out to Sherry, reached out to Kyle and said, why don't we meet this coming Monday and formulate a plan where, Kyle, we consider you doing the team photos and the individual team portraits for those. I think Sherry still wants to continue to attend the events and do the action shots, but this is a way to maybe make sure that we're covered and can get the best of both worlds. So we're really in a compressed time at this point. I mean, we start our fall activities, athletics officially begins next Monday. So it's going to start speeding ahead quickly, and we need to make arrangements to have those done. And so I do feel pretty good about Sherry still being there, Kyle doing what he does, because I've seen his work. And you know, so if we can make that work and hammer something out Monday, then we'll bring it back. But I feel pretty good if we could find a way to both of them tag team this and get through it.
Sounds like a good plan.
The bees, it's the 3 Bs. It's beans, balls, and buses.
There, okay, beans.
School lunch and transportation and sports. That's what you.
Yeah, there we go. I'll remember that next time.
Yeah.
So does that put like, so since there wasn't a formal
That'd be appropriate.
cost analysis or whatever proposal, I guess, do we just stay status quo of what we were paying last year? Or how does-
Paying, we don't pay.
So this is just, they just get it. And the parents pay him.
Exactly.
If
And
they
that's
buy-
kind of
they
why,
buy stuff.
yep. And that's why I want to visit with both those parties on Monday to just be on the same page to make sure, you know,
Everybody's
something's
good.
not completely
Yeah.
And,
different than,
There's another local person in the district, I think, that maybe still has one child still in the district that's a traveling photographer.
yep,
Was there no interest in that one?
I didn't get a proposal, so.
Okay, I just wondered if there was any interest there or not. Okay. In the past, I think he'd been interested when,
Right.
you know, so anyway. That's it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
All right, anything else for the good of the cause?
Just a motion to adjourn.
You got it. Second?